Hey everybody, it is Rick. We're going to dive right into it because we have 10 movies to talk about. That's right, I watched 10 movies the final week of October. Um, Technically 9, we'll talk about that in a moment. But 10 movies to talk about, 6 of which were on physical media. I will also mention that this was the final week of October, so pretty much most of what we're going to talk about are horror or spooky films. But the first movie we're going to talk about, I actually forgot to talk about in the last video. Not sure how this happened, but usually I copy and paste every time I do a review in Letterboxd into a Word document. I copy and paste my review and I print it out, so I have my notes here. This was a movie I technically watched the third week of October, but I just shifted things around. We made it, we're going to talk about it in the fourth week of October, the final week of October. And it is a film called Bad Roomies, which I watched on Hulu. Excuse me. The movie was on my watch list strictly because of the lead actor being Patrick Renna. If you guys don't know who Patrick Renna is, he is Ham from the Sandlot film. I don't think he was in the second one. He stars in it. It tells the story of two roommates who are looking for a third roommate. They end up getting an attractive female roommate. There's a sexual tension between the three of them, even though Patrick Renna's character is in a relationship. And at a party one night, things come to a head, and then the movie gets really, really weird. It also starts out weird, but kind of ends up tying together. There's a dark comedy element to this movie, but the movie isn't very funny. It's just a very weird movie. I'd heard a lot of really bad things, but I was curious about it as it was advertised as a dark comedy, and I like Patrick Renna. The ending of this movie, just like, I was scratching my head. I was like, this is where we're going. Like, I basically put my review, and this is where the movie went. WTF. And that is the best way to sum up Bad Roomies, and it gets a big old 1 out of 5 for me. Don't recommend that one. Think you guys should skip it personally, but that's, to each their own. The next thing we're going to talk about, we watched while RJ was over, and this is a film that I have never seen. RJ and Bridget have both seen it, and you guys will probably be a bit shocked that I've never seen it, and that is The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. This movie was released in 98, 2000... 99. I was all over it. So like I said, starring Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz. Those are the two big names in this movie. This movie had never been on my radar, honestly, and we were looking for like spooky things or, kind of scary-esque things to watch with RJ. This movie definitely gave me strong like Indiana Jones vibes from it. That's what I thought of when I watched it, like a more modern Indiana Jones. Brendan Fraser is fantastic as the lead in the movie. He absolutely like owns the screen every time he's featured in the film. Rachel Weisz is good as well. Don't have a ton to say about this one. It's just a fun watch. It's a very like action adventure movie, not scary at all. But once again, I didn't really know that because I'd never seen it. But a fun movie. It has me like kind of curious to seek out the other ones, even though I've heard very, very mixed and bad things, especially when we're talking about the Tomb Emperor. I've heard that's awful. I have seen the remake with Tom Cruise, which is more of a horror movie, or like a horror movie kind of, because that was them rebooting the monster Universal Monster franchise, and that kind of was dead in the water. So The Mummy, 3.5 out of 5. A fun movie to watch for sure. Next thing we checked out was on HBO Max, and it was a bit of an interesting watch for me because it was The Many Saints of Newark. And why was it an interesting watch for me? Sopranos is a show that has been on my watch list for 20 years now, and I've never seen it. I have watched the last episode of Sopranos. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it was such a major TV event when it was on that I wanted to watch the last episode. So when everybody in school was talking about it, I would be able to give my 2 cents. And the show, it didn't really make sense because I wasn't super familiar, but I knew about characters and stuff, so I could kind of follow along in this film. Basically tells the story of Tony Soprano as a kid, and then Tony Soprano as a teenager, which if you watch the trailer, you think it's about Tony Soprano in his like late teen years. They don't really show Tony Soprano as a kid very much in this film, or in the trailer, but that's kind of half of the movie. Plus, Tony Soprano is a very small character in this movie. The movie actually focuses most on Dickie Moltisanti, Dickie Moltisanti, who is Tony Soprano's uncle, and he's like the boss at the time. So, focuses on that. It also centers around the 1967 Newark riots. Real thing, really happened in history. And I know a lot of people complain that like the movie had different intentions than being a Sopranos like origin story. This is an origin story for Tony Soprano and kind of shows why Tony Soprano became the way he was in later years. But a lot of people, I guess, were just expecting like a straight up like Sopranos origin story, but it was more like a mob gangster movie that takes place in the 60s and 70s. I enjoyed it quite a bit for what it was. I'm seeing what like I said, I kind of just like went off the top of the dome with that. So I will say that Bridget, my girlfriend, mentioned the actor who portrayed Silvio in the film did an absolutely outstanding job. Apparently he has lots of like mannerisms and everything that the actor who played a younger version of him really nailed. I love how they cast James Gandolfini's son. Michael is his name. Plays Tony Soprano as a late teenager. He did a great job, and obviously there's no denying that he could be a young Tony Soprano because it's his father's son. It's James Gandolfini's own flesh and blood. So I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. A good gangster movie. Interesting for sure. Was not bored. Was intrigued to see where it went. Definitely makes me want to watch Sopranos even more. I'll add it to the ever-growing list of shows I want to watch. You know, that, Boardwalk Empire, Mad Men, about 20 series on Netflix, about 10 series on Hulu, stuff on Apple Plus, other shows that I have sitting on my shelves. So much content, so little time, guys. You know how it is. The next thing we watched was a film called The Ruins. Had never seen this one. Bridget had never seen it as well. Grabbed this movie a few years back on Blu-ray. I want to say from Pam's or just inexpensively hunting. So the movie stars Shawn Ashmore, Jenna Malone, Jonathan Tucker, and Laura Ramsey. It's about two couples on vacation in Mexico. They decide to go to some ancient Mayan ruins after they meet a guy at the resort they're staying at. They meet a guy and he said they're going to go to the ruins. There's something wrong with these particular ruins as the locals show up after they approach the ruins and will not let them leave. They actually end up killing somebody because they try to leave. And basically the ruins may be alive, and we'll leave it at that. Some craziness ensues. So I will say that this movie, not necessarily a scary movie, but a very graphic film. There were a few times where I may have looked away from the screen because it's described as, this is before they described why it was rated R. But there's some graphic, I told you guys before, I can't watch like hospital shows or shows where there's operating. There's definitely stuff done in this movie that could not look, was looking the other way, for sure. And the CGI was pretty awful in this. This movie is from 2008. A fun movie though, like a good watch. Only a one-time watch for me. This won't be staying on the shelf. This will be leaving the collection But I gave The Ruins a 3 out of 5. A decent watch nonetheless. And yeah, glad to have this. Was glad to watch this one and see that, you know, it was a good movie. Not something that needs to stay on the shelf. The same thing with this next title here. A movie I got really inexpensively. I want to say I paid $1 or $2 for this at a Goodwill. I'd heard a lot of good things. This being from 1999 is a film called Stir of Echoes, which stars Kevin Bacon, also stars Catherine Erbe, Kevin Dunn, and Elena Douglas. So this is basically a 1999 thriller movie. Typical psychological thriller of that era. Gave me very much like vibes of The Sixth Sense to an extent, and maybe it's because I had watched it fairly recently when I watched this, but I was comparing the two movies a lot. Zachary David Cope, who plays the kid in the movie, doesn't hold a candle to Haley Joel Osment's performance in The Sixth Sense, in my opinion. The movie, while definitely not a bad film, is definitely forgettable. I'm only probably 2 weeks removed from this, and I don't really remember a ton about it. I know that Kevin Bacon gave a decent lead performance. Like I said, I kept comparing it to Sixth Sense, but it just wasn't something I loved or I would necessarily ever watch again. I give Stir of Echoes a 3 out of 5. Another title that will be leaving the collection, won't be making the shelf. Now it's time to get controversial on Down the Movie. Lots of people were very excited I was watching this movie. I bought this very cheap on an Arrow sale that Joe Martinez told me about years back. Probably like beginning of quarantine, if not before. Had never seen this movie. I know my younger sister is a big fan of the movie. Like I said, I acquired this for really cheap, brand new. And luckily, it goes for some pretty good money because I know, guys, this will not be making my shelf. Not something I'll ever need to watch again, but I needed to see what all the hype was about for this movie from 1988, and that is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Wow. So I will preface my review by saying if you grew up watching this, in the late 80s, the early 90s, it was something you watched maybe when you were a kid, a teenager, and you grew up watching it, I can see the appeal. As a 30-something-year-old male who's watching this 33 years removed from its original release, this movie did not do anything for me personally. Never had seen the movie, had no idea what to expect. You know, I'm not a fan of clowns, so I was a bit hesitant. I think maybe that's why I put off watching it for so long. The movie's very goofy, what I assume is a very low-budget film, but I will say that the sets on the movie look absolutely fantastic. The gigantic clowns look very cool for a late 80s movie. I know they just had a haunted house last year or 2 years ago at Universal Studios. Very cool, very visually neat to look at, especially for a low-budget movie. But like the humor that's mixed in for the film fell flat for me. It's very much a B horror movie. It's loved by so many people. The highlight of the film for me is the catchy theme song. Personally, that's where this movie is for me, and I give it a 1.5 out of 5. This will not be making my shelf. I'll be selling this and hopefully getting decent money. I think this goes for some good money. I do like it has reversible artwork, which is cool, but Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I've now seen it. I can say I've watched it. It's just not for me. Gets a 1.5. And yeah, please, hopefully you guys are still watching the video now. And you didn't turn it off out of anger, raising your fist in the air at me. But it is what it is. So this next movie, been wanting to check out. Was very nervous to check out, and is a film called Raw. This was actually on DVD that I watched this. Made by Focus Features. It is a French film about a girl who's a lifelong vegetarian. She's getting ready to go away to veterinarian school. She's, I believe, 16 or 17 years old. She goes to this school. There's all sorts of hazing and craziness there. And one of the things that they have them do is to eat, I believe it was a part of a rabbit. She gets incredibly sick from it. She goes to a doctor. She breaks out. She wakes up the next morning. She has a rash all over her body. Goes to a doctor. And so then she starts getting these weird tendencies. That's where I'm going to leave it because I didn't know much more about the movie than that. So like I said, I knew of the plot. I was a bit nervous to watch this movie. And I actually... it didn't bother me like I thought it would. To give you an idea, the movie is rated R for aberrant behavior, bloody and grisly images, strong sexuality, nudity, language, drug use, and partying. So I was worried, and I'm not even going to show you guys the back artwork because it gives away a pretty big spoiler, of the movie in my opinion. So the content didn't have me looking away from the screen like I thought it would, although there's some like veterinarian stuff that actually skeeved me out more so than the other stuff that happens in this film. I will also say this movie is very weird, very bizarre, pretty crazy, but I really enjoyed this movie. Once again, not something I would probably ever watch again, but one I would definitely recommend people check out that have not seen it. Like I said, it is rated R. It is very R-rated. It is a French film, so it is subtitled. And I know the filmmaker, Julia Ducournau. I know it's not right. Apologies. I'm sure people will leave comments how to say it. Just directed a film called Titane or Titani that is getting rave reviews, and I also heard is absolutely crazy. I'm on board after watching this. I'm curious to see it. So... had me intrigued throughout the runtime. Was very curious where the movie was going to go. It's an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 39. And Raw gets a 3.5 out of 5. It, however, will not make the shelf. I've seen it once. I praised it. I don't want to say praised. I give it a 3.5. It's a really good movie. One I would recommend checking out. But not one that I would need to stomach. See what I did? Ever again. Next up, we watched a movie on Netflix, a new movie. It looked like it would be a lot of fun, called Night Teeth. We saw the trailer for this one, thought it would be a fun play on a vampire movie. Pretty intriguing cast as well, which got me excited. There are two names in particular that are advertised in the trailer, in the movie, that are legit only in one scene, which bugged me a bit, but I get the marketing aspect of it. Jorge Lendeborg Jr. Is Benny. He's the lead actor in the film. He's been in other things like Bumblebee, Love, Simon, and Superman Homecoming. Maybe I'll pop up a photo of him right here so you guys know and be like, oh, that guy, yeah, him. He's the lead in this movie. He's likable. But there's a love story that overtakes the film with Debbie Ryan that she's kind of like the other lead in the movie to an extent. And just threw off the feel of the movie. Also, it seemed to be like watered down. Like they had an R-rated premise, but wanted it to be PG-13, which is weird because it was a Netflix film. But there was language in it. So it was like, I wasn't sure what the vibe they were trying to pull was. Like I said, it turns into a love story, which I really wasn't... It's not what I thought was going to happen, not where I thought it was going to go. The action in the film is rushed, pretty sloppy as well, and feels like the pacing is just unsure of what it wants to do and what the movie wants to be. So I gave Night Teeth a 2 out of 10. No, 2 out of 5. Why did I say out of 10? I need iced tea. That's what I need. I need some more caffeine. Next up, a movie I was incredibly excited to check out. Probably one of my most anticipated of the year when I heard it was a thing. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Wright movies. Baby Driver, the Cornetto trilogy are the ones that come for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, duh, Rick. Love most of what the man does. And he had a new film coming out, and we went and saw it called The Last Night in Soho. Saw it opening weekend. Was, like I said, incredibly excited for it. Saw the initial trailer, was even more excited, and then avoided the trailers that came out after. We were at the movie theater one day, and I legit like plugged my ears and like just closed my eyes for 3 minutes because I didn't want to see anything else from the movie. I didn't want stuff that was given away. And after watching the movie, went back and watched the trailer. So glad I avoided the other trailers. I really wish they would stop giving away so much of the movie in trailers. That's a whole nother rant for another day. So this movie, like most other Edgar Wright movies, has an incredibly killer soundtrack. I actually downloaded it that Monday onto my phone. It is a all like 1960s music soundtrack. The movie is a love letter to 1960s London, a psychological thriller in every sense of the word. The story was a bit confusing in places, but once seeing the full film, like I'm excited to revisit it with knowing where the film goes and watching it, knowing where it ends, to view it with different eyes, which I think is a good thing when it comes to psychological thrillers, when you can finish the movie and go, I can't wait to revisit this, like, again, like I want to watch this knowing where it goes to see if, like, how much more I enjoy it. It answered all the questions it proposed for the most part, and a crazy trip along the way. Definitely will be getting this one probably in 4K when it comes out. Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy are both fantastic in the film as the two leads. There were some standout supporting performances as well by Terrence Stamp and the late Diana Rigg in the film. Really good in it. Plus, the song Downtown has been like ingrained in my head since seeing this. And I watched this probably like 2 weeks back now. Like I said, had to get the soundtrack. Anya Taylor-Joy sings a version of Downtown that's on the soundtrack. Like I said, I'll be getting this on 4K when it comes out. Last Night in Soho gets a 4 out of 5. Very upset this didn't do well in theaters. This movie deserves so much more praise than it has gotten. So many more people need to check this out. It's like Baby Driver, I think, was an underappreciated movie that gained a lot of... People are probably like, what are you talking about? In theaters, that movie was very underappreciated. It found new life on home video, on streaming. That's what I want to happen with this movie, because Edgar Wright is just crushing it. Every time the man does something, it's like priority. I need to see it. I need to check it out because he's just outstanding. And the man can set up a soundtrack for a movie like nobody else right now. Last movie, guys. Movie number 10. This is a long review video. This is probably the longest review video I've done in a while. You guys haven't even seen me talk about this one yet, because it'll be in my video that I'm recording next, my Facebook pickup video. And it is a movie that is, how many years in the making? I forget how many years it's been since the sequel. Probably like, what's the noise? Oh, it's the play. I'm losing my mind, guys. Don't Breathe 2. Check this one out on Blu-ray. 5 years ago, the original came out. There was a scene in particular that has not left my brain since seeing it, probably for the worst, that it hasn't left my brain. Was very excited to check out the sequel when I heard it was coming out. Trailer left me very confused, which is good. I just watched the first trailer. It had me excited to check out the movie. It had me asking questions. That's it. We'll leave it at that. And so this time, Brendan Sexton III is creepy local Rylan. And I was so excited when I realized that that was Warren from Empire Records. I legit marked out over that. Was pretty excited. He's grown up to look like John Moxley. I wonder if I can do like a side-by-side. Here's Brendan Sexton III. We'll try to do a shot from Don't Breathe 2. And there's John Moxley. Brendan Sexton, John Moxley. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? I think they look alike. But the movie basically pits bad versus bad, as in the first film. And it's just a fun ride. Some gnarly scenes. Not a scene quite as gnarly as the scene in the first movie. Just a fun, entertaining watch. Don't Breathe 2 gets a 3.5 out of 5 for me. I'm a bit torn if this will stay on the shelf. Unlike the first movie, which I think is rewatchable, except for that one scene, I don't know how much I would revisit this one. It'll be on the shelf for now, but I could see it being purged down the line because I don't know how often I would revisit Don't Breathe 2. But nonetheless, 3.5 out of 5, Don't Breathe 2. That is it, guys. That is everything that I've watched in October now. Lots to talk about in this video. 29 movies watched in the month of October total, which was good. I still had a ton of stuff left on my spooky movie list that I'll just sprinkle in, and maybe some of it I won't watch till next year. We shall see. Let's get into the surprise of the month and the hot trash of the month. Surprises of the month, I have a tie. Both of them are here next to me. We have spoiler alert. We have Raw, which I just spoke about in this video. A very creepy French film. Not creepy. A crazy French film that is intense and wild, and one I recommend checking it out. Then you have a very scary movie that legit scared the ever-loving life out of me, and that is Host, scientifically proven to be the scariest movie of all time. Man. So, 2 really good one-word movies that you guys should check out. And then, hot trash of the month. The flaming garbage can is probably next to me, flaming up, blowing all sorts of hot garbage fumes. And I have a feeling we'll talk about this one in about a month or month and a half when I do my hot trash of the year. That is Bliss, which starred Owen Wilson and Selma Hayek. This movie was stupid. It was a mixed bag of unnecessary. It was a very poorly acted in movie. Owen Wilson, very out of place in this film. Just not a very good film. Don't have a lot nice to say about it. And we'll talk about it again come the end of December, early January, when we talk about the hot trash of the year. So thank you guys for watching this video as always. If you enjoyed it, give the video a thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys watched in October. Let me know what you've been watching recently. Also, be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you don't do so already. And hit that bell notification so you guys know when new videos are coming to the channel. Also, be sure to check out the description box down below where you can find links to my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, where I rate and review all the movies that I watch, as well as my Blu-ray.com profile, Amazon wishlist, and eBay store, P.O. box, email address, all can be found down below. So that is it, guys. As always, until next time, who's down to movie?